Hey friends, Stormgate has if you're watching this, hopefully the patch is out or like the game's down, the patch will be out soon. But today is probably Stormgate's biggest patch ever. And if you caught my interview with Alan last week, he's saying, yeah, no, this is a cool patch, but the next one is the really good one, or maybe it's the patch after that. But like there's a beefy patch coming up, which is insane, because this patch is really, really big. Now, of course, if you want to stay up to date with all the Stormgate development news, developer interviews, casted high-level games, all this stuff, make sure to go hit the sub button on YouTube, follow me on Twitch so you can catch me live, because that's where it happens. There's a ton of stuff on the way in the future. But for now, let's talk about this awesome, really awesome patch that we got. So first and foremost, it's mostly quality of life stuff. There's some balanced stuff at the end that we'll talk about, but there's no new content. And by that, I mean campaign stuff or new units or the unit reworks we've been talking about. Nothing like that. This is primarily updates, not new things. That being said, there also will be a tournament happening this coming weekend. Official Frost Giant $1,000 tournament for charity. And if you sign up, if enough people sign up for it, well, then the developers are going to donate even more money to the charity. So even if it's just getting smashed by MSRM in round one, please go sign up for that. It's a good cause. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be streaming both days. I'll be casting both days. It's going to be a good time. So looking at this patch, first of all, it's a cute little pet. Let's load this thing up. Yeah, it's a cute little bear pet. A little more expensive, but that's mainly because they're going to go and making sure that the maximum money, or the, like, I guess $5 or are going to go to Chalk. They put some more information about it, but it's a little bit more expensive. But again, it's for charity. The big news, the 1A title news of the patch, though, are new hotkeys and automated control groups, which means that you'll be able to have fully custom hotkeys. Cool, awesome. They're adding steal and add as well, which means that if you press Alt Shift and number, it'll take the units that are selected from whatever hotkey they're in and add them to the new hotkey. Previously, what they had steal hotkey, so you could go and steal units from your first group and add and redefine a new group as that. So you could go and like take 5 gaunts from your main army, add them into hotkey 0. But then if you want to take 5 more gaunts and put them into hotkey 0, they're not going to get added in. They're just going to get overwritten. Now, if you do it, you 5 gaunts, hotkey 0, 5 gaunts again, hotkey 0. If you use shift add steal, it's going to be 10 gaunts and hotkey 0, which is, I know Mixu in particular is very excited about this one. But this, when they added this to StarCraft 2, this was a groundbreaking thing. It is a very nice quality of life. Also, you can remove units from control groups, not add them something else, but just fully remove them. There's a button to cycle town halls, which is useful for like checking saturation, particularly if you're playing like Infernals. You'll be able to cycle through quick macro panels. You'll be able to have fully custom hotkeys. But the big thing for me is automated control group customization. So if you don't use it right now, automated custom automated control groups, your entire army is on hotkey 1, your ground army is on hotkey 2, and your air army is on hotkey 3. Now you'll be able to say, I want all my ground army in hotkey 1. I want my drop ships on hotkey 4. The rest of my flyers on hotkey 3. I want my siege units on hotkey 2. I want my sieged atlases on hotkey 3 and my unsieged atlases on hotkey 4, which is something you can do. That is awesome. That is so big. They've also gone and made it so that there's no, well, there is a true all army hotkey. It's moved. It's now on M. What used to be effectively hotkey 1 is now hotkey 0. They've moved it all the way to the other side. But the cool thing about this is that now not only do you have an all army hotkey, I want to select everything. I've lost a unit, I've unbound something, but also I have a all units that have not been moved elsewhere. Hotkey and hotkey 0. So you can go and like remove the example they use. You can move a scout. You can put it on hold position in a bush, remove it from your all army hotkey, and still have access to the rest of it. If you like need to panic and move things or do whatever, while still having access to everything on M. So spacebar used to be just the all army hotkey. Now it's the all army custom hotkey or all army control group. I don't exactly know how to talk about the difference between the two. But what they did also with all of this is you can they added the ability to have custom alternate hotkeys. So in this case, 0 and spacebar are the same control group, and you're able to do other things with that. I don't know exactly the use case this for here for everyone, but if you have a use for it, it's good news. So patch notes in general, Twitch in client embeds, which is probably I gotta assume they're going to use it for chalked at the start, but also Stormgate Sundays on in the client. Yes, please, Rush Giant, if you're watching, do that for me. Thank you, love you. They've also gone and significantly changed the way flyers work. So now flyers, they cluster together. You can cluster them together. They phase through each other while if you kind of click them into the same spot. But they're going to try to unflock or uncluster while moving, while stationary, and they have to be fully spread out before attacking. So it's like halfway between what we used to have, which was kind of clunky and a little weird, and what StarCraft 2 does. And while there are pros and cons to how StarCraft 2 did it, what it really meant was that it was like insane DPS concentration for things like muted clumps, phoenix clumps, things like that. And yes, it led to some fun micro, but this is a different approach. It's apparently closer to like how Warcraft 3 has done things. Like I didn't play Warcraft 3, but that's what I've been told. And it's just a different approach. We'll see how it works out. It should at the very least make things a lot more comfortable to control. Also, big graphical changes here on unit turning, animations, things like that. Vulcan has a new animation. Projectiles should look a little bit better, should kind of arc higher and land better. Units in general are going to turn and look a little bit less janky. Also some camera smoothing settings, which may almost mean like it might be viable to keep edge pan on if you're observing. It's always just been bad. It's too herky-jerky. You gotta use middle mouse button scroll if you're observing a game, like for a tournament or something. So who knows what's gonna happen with this one? Could be cool though. Also, pre-game countdown is awesome, especially if you would load in a little bit later. You know, for people on lower powered computers, getting a 3-second countdown before your game so you can get your mouse in the right spot and get ready to go and plan what you're gonna do it's just a nice change. It gives you that setup. You can also pause in any game mode, although limited to 3 if it's in a 1v1 or something, which makes sense. If you need a pause, cat's on your keyboard, you can do so, and it's also not going to be way too abusive. Infinite pausing is not great, but a couple pauses, yeah, it's going to be nice. Area of effect targeting affected unit indicators, enemy units in red, your units in green, so you can see if you are in AoE a little bit easier, which is nice because sometimes the particle effects would make it harder to see what was happening, or just you're on the edge of an AoE and you don't realize that you're in there and your units take more damage than they should and things like that. So that's pretty cool. I'm curious how that's going to impact like Nanoswarm. Is Nanoswarm going to be a trigger, like a friendly Nanoswarm? Is that going to trigger that? Because that might be a lot of green. We'll see. Range indicators will collectively visualize range when it's upgraded by research. Yes, thank you. Bunch of error messages when things don't work. That's useful. You'll be able to swap vision in replays. I wonder if you can do this in live observing too. That would be nice. I assume we're going to get there eventually. It means I could actually go and have an observer in game and have them observe and just steal their perspective, which is awesome if that's possible. I don't know if we're there yet, but it would be cool. Also, they've made significant improvements to the post-game screen. Bunch of different stats, bunch of different statistics. You can see what the statistics are right here. Army value, money mined in the bank, research bounty, research spent on research, expansions, workers. Also some kudos. Like if you defended really well, it'll say, hey, good, you did a good job against the opponent's aggression. You killed a lot of units or whatever it is. Also audio alert and minimap ping when upgrade completes. Nice quality of life change. That's pretty good. You'll be able to disable rollback in settings rather than in a launch command, which is just a lot more accessible to people. And you're no longer going to try to rejoin a game when you quit a game via the in-game menu. So this is a bug fix. They've also made a massive visual pass. We're not going to go over it too much here because it'll be on full display in Stormgate Sundays. Tomorrow evening, actually. I guess it's technically a Stormgate Wednesday, but bunch of custom graphic effects, big visual pass, big lighting pass. In general, explosions look better, lighting looks better, units and structural depth have improved. The Flay Dragon's a little bit bigger. They've also added some new Infernal and construction effects, which is a hint at the full redesign that's going to be coming in a patch or two, we hope, but coming soon, TM. Also, a new attack move and UI pings, which is if you've seen those in the kind of some of the trailers, they look good. Well, I don't know. It's a thing. It's a small thing. Lighting looks better. That we're missing the rim light, unfortunately, but they've standardized a new lighting system with new exposure values for continuity. Time of day system incorporates moving sun and moon, adding new light to the environments, not in the ladder maps, but being tested on Infested Crater Co-op, and then Titan's Causeway and Isle of Dread, Day, Night, and Stormy. We're going to be using these, as long as it doesn't like kill people's FPS, we're going to be using these in Stormgate Sundays. It's just by default. It's going to look better. I'm excited for it. Don't worry. We're going to use those. Should we add these to the competitive map pool? So long as they work, absolutely, Fresh Giant. Absolutely. Eastern structures have better materials now too, more animations, new walk animation for the Vulcan, updated the Lancer's attack animation to play properly, and then better terrain textures, new model for the Skylight, updated new model for the Luminite, better Shroud visuals, Fog of War looks better, Blockade has had his glow up, although not in the UI and the portrait apparently. A couple audio improvements. You can now mute setting and in-game toggle hotkey. Volume levels have now been normalized across everything, so Hellborn aren't going to blow you up. Decrease the length of your sound effects. Walking sounds have been mostly removed because they just kind of muddy things and weren't super useful. Audio for the Dark Prophecy, audio for the Flayed Dragon. Of course, a lot of units are still placeholder. A lot of audio is still needs a more solid pass, but this is a step in the right direction. They've also gone and fixed a ton of bugs. A lot of these under general were a lot of Bob bugs where you would try to kind of Bobs would just stop working for a bunch of different reasons because they were trying to go and return to mine even though they had stuff in their inventory, or they would get stuff waiting they would get stuck after building something and trying to go back to mine. They would just get stuck all over the place. So this fixes a lot of those. Also, apparently top bar was bugged sometimes. I never saw that bug, but top bar was apparently bugged and when pinged, so that's fixed. And you'll be able to hold down your hotkeys to build units in the quick macro panel, not just if your structure's hotkeyed. So, Bobs no longer sometimes continue to mine from invisible mines. Infernal structures will no longer concern, like just a bunch of really nice changes. Fellhogs no longer drag select. Shroud Weave now correctly targets a structure or a unit or a location instead of a structure. Vectors don't leave graphical changes. Bunch of co-op fixes that we're not going to talk about because I just don't have the context to talk about them. Replays work a little bit better. When rewinding a replay past a loaded cargo unit, loaded units will no longer vanish. Units killed in a replay will no longer be invisible after rewinding. Players can no longer move their camera outside the map in replays or as in observer mode. The unit panel now correctly updates while gameplay is paused in a replay. So in general, replays, not all the bugs, but some of these long-standing bugs have been fixed. Thank you, Frost Giant. Makes me very happy. Say a bunch of art updates as well, a lot of co-op stuff, but Prism has updated building art. Wraithstone's slow debuff visuals scales properly to the unit size. Bunch of stuff. Also, audio has been fixed. So SFX, this hoplite, but sound would not fix various issues where sound would not obey the master volume and SFX volume mixers. Thank you. That is a big one. No death sounds, a bunch of co-op audio bug fixes as well. Designate prime structure no longer has VO. That doesn't really feel like a bug fix. That feels like we thought it was annoying, so we changed it. Atlas deployed attack sound no longer ducks all other sound effects. And then somebody bot changes. We've also gone and gotten a balance patch on top of things, which is really nice. So they made a host of improvements aimed at enhancing player experience, all the quality of life stuff. Also excited to unveil flare flocking, but they have a couple other goals that with the balance. So first of all, they're tweaking the economy a little bit. I think the last I think the last patch in 0.2.1 was awesome, made the game feel a lot better to play, but Therium mining was not tuned enough. So you would have these big Luminite banks that you couldn't really spend. So Therium node count increased to 3 to 5. Bob and Imps mine a little bit more Therium, and the collection array has been buffed by 100 Luminite, both for the collection array flat and with a Morph Core. got to be a little careful there because Celestials, that one collection array is half their eco for a base. So that buffing it by 100, we'll see. But the goal of this is they say, hey, you know, we feel like there are kind of some dead times for Celestials. We want to reduce that a little bit. And then again, fix the Infernal, the Illuminate Therium balance in Vanguard, particularly for Infernals. So we'll see. They've also gone, they want to make things more harassable. So Bobs health have been nerfed by 30. Imps have been nerfed by 10, although their white health is unaffected, which means that their white health is no longer going to be 25% of their health pool, which is, I think, the only unit that's like that. If I'm forgetting one, please let me know in the comments below. But I think that's the only unit I'm thinking of. Also, power banks are cheaper. They are smaller. They're not as tanky, but they are more effective in generating power. So what this means is that they are more harassable, but also more effective while they're up and a little bit easier to replace. So it makes harassment more effective while also allowing you to recover from harassment a little bit more. And realistically, harassing the power banks are what you want to do in the early game. You can't harass prisms. Not until you've Gaunts or X's or something. So, and shutting down build time, shutting down, putting a Celestial into red power is probably more impactful than killing a prism in the early game anyways. So a little bit more interplay there, which I do like. They've also buffed the evac movement speed and Sky Sprint retrofit. Well, it's the same, but overall it's a net buff, which is pretty nice. These evacs are getting pretty fast. They might be, this might be something where evac micro is, or evac A micro is a little bit more common, but also evac drops might be played a little bit more. Also, between the Therium mining buff and the Harbinger cost nerf in Therium, we're going to see more Theriums in the patch. We might even see multiple Harbingers in the patch. I'd like to see them part of main army. I think Seismic Slam is very undervalued. So that's exciting. They've also gone and reworked the artillery, so Atlas shot fires faster. The upgrade is 30 seconds faster, and it's also going to say, hey, if the unit that I was targeting is dead, I'm not going to immediately go into my backswing and like take forever to fire. I'm going to find a unit within 5 range, target that one, and go from there. So this should make Atlas do significantly more damage per second. It's going to make them much more viable. They were already being used as a counter to the mass Hexen style, and this just makes them more impactful. So I think if you like Atlases, you know, like evac micro, you're gonna be very happy with this patch. Helicarriers health have been buffed by 100, while bomber health has been cut in half, and they are slower. So more counterplay for the bombers, but the helicarriers live a little bit easier. I like that counterplay while also not punishing you quite as hard for a helicarrier being out of position. This is a change I'm a little worried about, though. The Hellborn, they have their cost buffed by 50 Therium. They do more damage per second, or they attack a lot faster. Backswing time halved, swing time halved, period decreased by 1. They attack a lot faster, but their damage to units is cut in half. Now it's 100 damage, still 100 damage to structures, but 25 versus 50 to units, which means their single target unit DPS is reduced by 4 from 12.5 to like 8.33. Single target structures versus buildings has increased by quite a bit. But what this means is that we're going to see this pattern where against small units, Infernals are probably going to be fine, but they don't really have a good answer to the big units, to the nanoswarmed Vulcan or whatever. So we're going to have to see how this works. Maybe I'm just catastrophizing and it's going to be fine, but I am a little bit worried about this. They've also reduced the range of the Saber and made it a little bit more specialized versus heavy. Same damage versus heavy, but less damage against all units. And the goals of these are to make the Atlas and the Hellborn more usable, which is awesome. They felt very clunky to use pretty much since their inception. Also, to provide more interaction opportunities. That's the bombing run is going to be a little easier to dodge, more counterplay to target the bombers down, things like that. Also, specialization and counterplay. And I think this is very interesting. Players more familiar with classic Blizzard RTSs often associate artillery units with units that provide crowd control splash damage. The Siege Tank, the Reaver, the Lurker, the Colossus, and all Warcraft 3 siege units fall into that category. One issue with this design, they say, is that if these units don't have sufficient weaknesses in counterplay, they can often create death balls. We feel that the Hellborn and the Saber have this issue, So we'll be moving closer to a model set by RTS games such as Age of Empires or Company of Heroes, where artillery units are much more specialized and fulfill more specific functions. And also, not only does this mean that Hellborn are clearly anti-structure, clearly the Sabres are anti-heavy. It also means that Vanguard are the only units that have like that clear Blizzard-style siege unit, which I think is kind of interesting. That gives a little bit more room for more faction asynchronicity. I don't know how it's going to work out. Well, we're going to have to see. But it's kind of cool. Interesting ideas. So moving on, looking at the Vanguard, Lancers have had their health nerfed by 20, which is good. These Lancer exo timings were often like, okay, I got 3 Lancers. They're not going to die for forever while the exos do all the damage. So, but you got to kill them because otherwise they're going to run through all your rough shot through your lines. So they're nerfing them by 20. They're going to be a little bit less effective, which is, I think it's a good change. I think Lancers were a little bit too tanky. I think this brings them, I don't know if it's enough, but it does bring them into line a little bit. Also, nerfed exo range by 1, so it's they only have 1 more range than Gaunts, which means that the infinite kite is less effective against everything that the Infernal has, which should make them a little bit less frustrating to play against, and that seems to be what Frost Giant is going for. So, big fan of that one. Medtechs have gone, and their energy cost is decreased from 50 to 40, which should mean at max energy they have 1 more nanoswarm, I think. Should have 5 nanoswarms plus regen instead of 4, which is kind of cool. And they've gone and made them do more damage against enemies by 1/3. So from 10 to 15 damage per second. And I really do like this. I think nanoswarm as an aggressive option is something that has been underexplored, in part because it just wasn't very good. And now doing that, this is going to be hopefully potentially kind of an interesting idea against Celestials. Maybe against some of these mech styles that Vanguards play too. So that should be fun. I'm all for that. Also, Vulcan has had their range nerfed by 1 as well, which in context was what EXO range used to be. They were a little bit too strong, and I agree with Frustron here. They were a little bit too strong and zoning out a lot of light units. They were crazy damage against light, and also you just couldn't get close to them. So this should allow a little bit more counterplay, dodging, splitting, weaving, a little bit more counterplay to the Vulcans. I still think they're going to be very hard to kill, but maybe you can dodge them a little bit more. We'll see. Also, significant Sentinel buffs. Not only have they had their health increased by 25% from 200 to 250, their adept training buffed by 50/50, so it's now only 50/50. And to get the nano bubble, it's only the central command. Don't need a high command. Still going to take a while, but nano bubble is now tier 2 tech, and it's going to get there faster because you don't need as much to get into adept training. These are big changes. Sentinels were already being used at high level in Vanguard versus Infernal, and we should see that much more. Also, maybe against Celestials now too. Most Celestial units are ranged, so getting that nano bubble up early is potentially a really powerful idea. Infernals. Infest is now 2 DPS instead of 1% of a target's max or a target's HP. So what this means is that if you have less than 200 HP, you're taking more damage. If you have more than 200 HP, you're taking less damage. Which is, and that means it's about 16 DPS for Miasma, to be clear. So this means that they're going to be much better against Exos. They're going to be worse against Lancers. They're going to be certainly worse against Vulcans. The only thing they're really better against in the Vanguard arsenal, at least, is going to be the Exo. Unupgraded Exos, at least. So another way to deal with kind of the Exo A move, but I am a little worried now. Without Miasma being significantly nerfed against high HP units, how we're dealing with medtech with nanoswarm Vulcans is going to be a challenge. Yes, you do have the Weaver. And the Weaver did get a couple buffs. We'll talk about that in a second, but I don't know that it's enough to offset the cost differential. And it's like 1 Weaver beats 1 Vulcan, but 10 Vulcans beat 10 Weavers because Weavers are light units. So yeah, we're going to have to see. For now, Wraithstone move speed buffed has been decreased by 10%. That's a good change. I guess technically 25%, but decreased by 40 from 40 to 30. That's a good change. A little bit too overpowered last patch. I think this maintains their strength, but also makes things a little bit more harassable. Also, Fellhogs have been nerfed. The Great Hog Wall of Mushroom is Not as strong as it once was. But again, as I think is good, this is opening a couple more harassment opportunities, run by opportunities against Infernals, which I think is good. Fiends are going to do a little bit more damage. Probably not going to impact main army fights too much because Fiends just die. But very good to harass collection arrays and habitats and other things like harass things for Fiend run bys, which I think is cool. Brutes, their tier 3 upgrade is much stronger now. It's now a 25% movement speed buff from 4 to 5. And you get an additional Fiend. So that means that Brutes in the late game, when you kind of need a Luminite dump, are going to be a little bit more viable, which is, I think, pretty cool. I will see how this works out. May not be enough, but Brutes were kind of useless in the late game. So maybe this helps. And in general, they're buffing movement speed for a lot of Infernal units across the board, at least once they get their upgrades. So what that means is the Infernal army is going to be a little bit more mobile, be able to maybe run away from fights a little bit more, things like that, which I think is, I like that. Gaunts, they do a little bit less damage versus light units, same damage against everything else. And Reaper's Rush is back up to 35% from 25%. So reduce polarizing early game matchups. I've been arguing that for forever. I'm a big fan of that one, while also making them a little bit more able to kite things a little bit more, able to run away and be a little bit just more high octane, which was fun. Reaper Rush Gaunts were just fun to play with. So bringing that back is good. It's a good change. Magmadon's Raging Tendons have been buffed by a little bit. I think I would rather see a base, like a flat move speed buff, because the problem was once you got Raging Tendons, they can engage. Otherwise, they just can't. So I think I would have liked to see that be a little bit more on the base side. But hey, we'll see how this one works out. Maybe this is enough. Maybe you just kind of rush Elder Shrine and get Raging Tendons, and it's good. They also do attack a little bit faster. So as they say, make it a little bit more impactful and catch units better while trampling. Sure. Weavers move a little bit faster. Some powers take it away from Shroud Walk, but overall it's a net 0.5 movement speed buff. So while they're not going to be able to teleport back home anymore, can no longer Shroud Weave or teleport aggressively into fights, they should be able to rally a little bit better, which is good. Even without Shroud. I mean, it's always going to be better with Shroud, but we're moving in this into this area where Weavers are slow, but not impossibly slow. But they still very much benefit from with their high HP pool and Shroud Walk. They're able to move a little bit faster on Shroud, and in general, that's pretty good. So won't be able to instantly respond, but can respond faster if they have to run. Shadow Flyers have been nerfed significantly. This is because the flocking change, where units are going to be clustered up more. So AoE, anti-armor, damage to flying units was probably going to be a little bit too strong. They have nerfed the radius. They have nerfed the single target damage. They've nerfed the splash damage. It may still end up being stronger than Shadow Flyers are right now, but we're going to have to see. And I think this is one that they're going to be watching. It may be too weak. I don't know. This is one that's really hard to predict because it all depends on how the flocking changes. And I haven't had a chance to play around with it yet. Flayed Dragon, on top of being bigger, is 50 animus more expensive, but you no longer have to get an upgrade. This makes sense. These like 10-minute Flayed Dragon timings were turning way too many games around against Celestials. In particular, just a little bit too strong. Felt like the dragon would come out before there were any answers easily accessible for Celestials. Now it comes out a little bit later. I think I like that. Celestials. Kree now, their Radiant Fury, which is the upgrade you get. That means that once they're dead, they can move around a little bit before exploding. Goes from 40 damage to 60 damage. It makes them a little bit more impactful in the late game. Their job now in the late game is like delayed Banelings, I guess. They run into an army, they die, they force the army to kite away, or you take significant damage. 60 damage. Remember, a Gaunt has 100 HP between the 80 HP and the 20 white health. So that's 60% of Gaunt's HP from one Kree dying on top of everything else. Like, that's actually pretty impactful. So that should make them, at least in Infernal and Celestia versus Infernal, a little bit more viable, I think. Cabal Adept training cost decreased, just bringing them in line with what they did with the Sentinels. But Gravity Flex missile speed decreased from 15 to 10. So you're going to be able to get your gravity flux a little bit faster, but also specifically Vanguard units are going to be able to return to hangar and outrun the gravity flux missile speed. So they get slapped into the ground, but they're going to be able to get back home and do that. So it means that while Cabal is counterplay to Hornet Harass, it's not the counterplay plus the unit just guaranteed dies. A little bit more harassment options also means that you can potentially cut away a little bit from the gravity fluxes in a fight. So your, say, Spriggans or your Hornets aren't going to get stuck in the front lines, and you can defend them a little bit longer, which is pretty nice. Seraphim are faster, 4.5 to 5, which means they should be able to run away from their counters, which I think that the Muta versus Phoenix scenario, where the Phoenix just, once the Phoenix are out, the Muta all die, never felt very good. I'm sure it felt great for Protoss players, but from a design perspective, it's like, this unit's out, you're dead. Doesn't feel great. So increasing the movement speed so they can run away, I do like that. They've also halved the Resolute Seal energy cost, which was the tier 3 upgrade that shut down static defense. If you cast it, you got the upgrade. No one used it. This is a very much a, hey guys, remember that this exists buff. It's like, hey guys, we're not seeing this used at all, so we're going to overbuff it and see if it gets used. Animancers, getting the Unseen Veil is now 50 Illuminate, 50 Therium cheaper. Prophecy no longer requires channeling. It loses 4 range. Its cooldown is much improved. It only lasts 4 seconds. It doesn't slow as much, and it scales linearly 20, 25, 30, 35 damage with 50 damage to all units in it once it ends. So this makes it a little bit more in line with Miasma in that it just feels good. You drop it, you don't have to worry about, like previously you drop it, you would start channeling, mag buttons would jump in, and it wasn't useful at all. Now it's useful, but there's counterplay. And I think this is a much better position for Dark Prophecy to be in. This idea of channeling spells was cool, but I just don't think it worked super well. You still have to channel the your basic ability that kind of steals energy and steals HP and restores life force. But the big top end spells, you can just cast them, which I think is good. I think that overall that is a more fun to play. Maybe it's not more fun to play against, but it is certainly more fun to play, and I think that matters quite a bit. Also, Archangel, the Scorched Earth research time has been decreased by 90 seconds. Oriel is very excited about this one. Well, we don't necessarily want players to come out with fully powered Archangels out of the gate. We felt this research takes too long. Fair. Middle ground. Making it come out a little bit faster, but not like immediately letting one Archangel drop out, slam onto a Luminite line, and just, even once it's gone, leaving things unmineable for a time. A little bit too strong. We're excited to see how these changes play out and look forward to hearing your feedback, see you on the battlefield. So that's it. That's the patch. You look at the balance patch, it says, hey, we want more harass. We want stronger, maybe some stronger space control abilities, but we're reducing static defense, with power of static defense. We're reducing the HP pool of a lot of the workers. We're reducing the HP pool of power banks. We're buffing some harassment tools. And hopefully what this means is there's more multitasking. You're going to be rewarded more for playing on the edges of the map, for multitasking, for harassing, for forcing your opponent to split up, forcing the army to split up. And that's what I love, at least in Blizzard-style RTS games. Hopefully we'll see that go a little bit more. Every single balance patch has been a pretty solid improvement to the game. And while I'm a little worried about how much damage, specifically Infernal's ability to kill like a nanoswarmed Vulcan, everything else looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy about with the rest of the patch. I'm very excited. And certainly the custom hotkeys and the auto control groups and the visual pass and everything else are very exciting. So let me know in the comments. Was there something I missed? Is there an interaction I'm missing here? Is there something you like, something you don't like? Let me know. I'll see you tomorrow night for Stormgate Sundays. And thanks for watching.